William Byron talks more about how the next-gen car handles, Dale Earnhardt Jr. returns to the track this weekend, and what is going on over at North Wilkesboro Speedway. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove, the end of a busy NASCAR news week. Been putting out a lot of content this week. If you missed it, yesterday I released a video I did with Jordan Anderson last week at Darlington, a behind-the-scenes look, if you will, of an actual NASCAR race team on race day. A huge thank you again to Jordan for taking time out of his busy race day schedule to kind of give us a behind-the-scenes tour, give y'all a behind-the-scenes tour. That was really cool. So if you missed that video, go check it out. Before we get to all of the news today, we have to thank this week's sponsor, LubeGuard Synthetic Automatic Transmission Fluid Protectant. It improves shift quality and fixes shifting problems such as hard shifts and slippage. It lowers the temperature and extends the life of the automatic transmission fluid. It lubricates and restores seals without swelling them. Compatible in conventional, synthetic, and low viscosity automatic transmission fluids. LubeGuard is the #1 product used by professional transmission rebuilders. Visit lubeguard.com for more information. It's available at Advance, AutoZone, CarQuest, Napa Auto Parts, O'Reilly Auto Parts, and online at Amazon.com. Thank you to LubeGuard for sponsoring this episode of Out of the Groove. Tomorrow is a busy day of NASCAR racing. The Xfinity Series will race at Richmond in the afternoon. The Cup Series will race in the evening. Two big races in one day. Tomorrow is also the 20-year anniversary of September 11th, so many race teams in both races are running special commemorative paint schemes, including the one and only Dale Earnhardt Jr., who makes his one and only Xfinity start of the season tomorrow afternoon. He will be driving the number 8 car, running this special paint scheme, as you can see. I know at least a couple of people who are planning to be at Richmond for tomorrow's Xfinity race purely because Dale Earnhardt Jr. is on the entry list. So even though he hasn't raced full-time in a few years now, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is still moving tickets, selling seats. And you know, the cool thing about him doing these one-off Xfinity races every year is that he's actually very competitive when he does get back behind the wheel. He's done this now 3 years in a row. This is year 4. In 2018, he actually raced at Richmond and finished 4th. He led 96 laps in that race. He was very competitive. In 2019, he selected Darlington as his one-off race and got a top 5 there as well, finished 5th. Last season, he raced at Homestead Miami Speedway with no practice, no qualifying, got back behind the wheel, and once again ran top 5, finishing 5th there. Led a few laps in the process, so he may not be the favorite to win tomorrow afternoon, but Dale Earnhardt Jr. has to get some votes. I expect to see him in the top 10, probably in the top 5. He might lead some laps. Honestly, I won't be shocked if it comes down to Dale Earnhardt Jr. versus Ty Gibbs for the race win. Oh man, NASCAR social media will implode if that happens. Don't make the same mistake Kyle did in 2008, Ty. That's all I ask. I feel like not many people in the media, at least, are talking about Dale Jr.'s appearance this weekend. Like, I'd understand if, he was going to run 20th, but given the last few years, he will probably run in the top 5, top 10, and be competitive. So with that in mind, he should be getting some attention. I'm sure he will run up front tomorrow. I'm excited to watch. Let me know how you think Dale Earnhardt Jr. will do tomorrow afternoon at Richmond. Now, before we talk about the latest rumors surrounding North Wilkesboro Speedway, I talked about the next-gen Daytona test in yesterday's video. Yesterday afternoon, William Byron and a couple other drivers spoke to the media, gave a few more details, a bit more context to the test, and Bob Pockrist asked Byron about the steering. We talked yesterday about the overheating issues in the car that NASCAR is aware of, the drivers are clearly aware of, and they're currently working on, but the steering, especially at bigger ovals, has been a subject of criticism from many of the drivers since the first next-gen oval test. Here's some of what William Byron said about how the new steering in the next-gen, how it feels, what makes it different than the current car, and how it's going to handle at maybe some short tracks and road courses later this year, or next year, I should say. Here's what William Byron said.
The steering is responsive. Is that good or is that bad? Like, what can you kind of explain that a little deeper?
It could be both. It's good in the fact that, yeah, it takes less effort. The car's quicker to respond. It's definitely going to be a good thing on short tracks. I think about Martinsville, how much easier it's going to be. The car's going to turn better at a short track, I think. But when it comes to Daytona, it was very easy to go around the corner almost with no effort. And I don't know if that's exactly what you want. Typically at Daytona, you want to have some forgiveness, just, if you get out of shape or something like that, and to be able to save it. So that's probably the question we all have. And it's probably going to take until somebody, crashes and in a big pack to kind of see.
You hear him say it there. It'll be easier to drive maybe at the short tracks, and I think that also will translate to the road courses. We've already seen, like at the Charlotte Roval test last year, we saw them running lap times a couple seconds faster than what the Gen 6 car was running at that track. So I think road courses, cars are going to be fast. They're going to be more nimble. I think that's the best word to use to describe the way the next gen car handles, especially compared to the Gen 6. It's more nimble, more dexterous. I think I've said before, it's like more athletic if a car can be more athletic. You know, what are the reasons for it? Like, why is the next gen car more dexterous? I think it has to do in part, at least, with the fact that the race car is just wider. You know, it's a lower, wider set. It's got lower profile tires and larger wheels. Some drivers have talked about the stiffer suspension. You know, these are all contributing factors as to why this car feels so different at ovals. You heard what Byron said there. It's going to turn easier at tracks like Martinsville and maybe other short tracks. And again, I think that can also be applied to road courses. But it becomes a challenge on the larger ovals. It sounds like the steering situation has improved a little bit since the first time Byron tested the next gen car back in 2020. But for sure, I think there are still questions that drivers have. I think as fans, we want to see the drivers challenged. We want to see a car that's harder to drive, something new that they all have to learn and adapt to. But there's a fine line between being harder to drive, hanging it right out on the edge, and driving a car that's unpredictable, a car that seems like it's going just fine and then suddenly it slips unpredictably. Like, I don't think fans want a car that's unpredictable where it almost randomly loses the handle. Like, that doesn't really sound good. I don't think the drivers want that, of course. I think we all want a car that the drivers are truly in control of. Not in control in the sense that it's easy to drive, they're just coasting, but in control in that the drivers have very direct input into everything the car does. The problem with the current 550 package at some tracks is that the drivers are put into a box. There's only so much they can do with the throttle, with the turning, when they're stuck in dirty air, when they're in the draft. A car that seems to just slip out from under them unpredictably, I don't think is going to be great. I don't think the drivers are going to like that, and I don't think fans will like that either. But still, months away from the first next gen race, it sounds like they've made some improvements on the steering. I thought that was an interesting clip, though, hearing William Byron talk a little bit more about what the exact differences between the Gen 6 and the next gen will be. All of these revelations continue to support NASCAR's latest campaign to add more short tracks and road courses to the future schedule. Less big ovals. The car is built for short ovals and road courses. I think that's what NASCAR is looking to build their brand on, especially short tracks, once again. And speaking of once great NASCAR short tracks, North Wilkesboro Speedway is in the news yet again. The NASCAR Cup Series last raced at North Wilkesboro in 1996. The track currently sits in disrepair, but over the course of this year, there has been a clear campaign by powerful individuals and groups to perhaps renovate North Wilkesboro in the near future. And there was another rumor, another hint this week that something big could be in the track's future. Brett Griffin, spotter in the NASCAR Cup Series, I don't know if he hasn't really been spotting full-time this year, but he's been a long-time spotter. He's very much inside the racing world. On Door Bumper Clear, Dale Jr. Dirty Mo Media podcast, said there is a series, a national series, it appears, on television that'll be going to North Wilkesboro. It's in the works, far, far, far down the path to happening. That quote raised a lot of eyebrows. Could it be a NASCAR series he's talking about? Not specific, but if you ask me, the only series that makes any sense is the Superstar Racing Experience, the SRX. That's right, we have not forgotten about the SRX. It's the only one that makes sense, right? I mean, this past summer, they built their brand on going to short tracks that otherwise may not get much TV time, like Slinger Speedway, Stafford. North Wilkesboro in its current state is not ready for TV, but with a little bit of work, it could be, especially for a series the size and scale of the SRX. So it makes a ton of sense, and a lot of people involved with the series have been hinting at it for months now. I mean, Marcus Lemonis, the CEO of Camping World, who is the title sponsor of the Camping World SRX series, pledged $1 million or more into renovating North Wilkesboro Speedway. The official SRX Twitter account tweeted this earlier in the summer, clearly hinting at something big for next year. Not to mention, last month, the North Carolina House voted to approve a budget that would include roughly $20 million going to Wilkes County to use to renovate North Wilkesboro Speedway. $20 million. Now, I believe that budget still needs to go through like the state senate and get approved by the governor, so I don't think it's a done deal just yet, but it's moving along very nicely. Remember earlier this year as well, North Wilkesboro Speedway is owned by Speedway Motorsports, and Marcus Smith, the head of Speedway Motorsports, told Dale Earnhardt Jr. to his face that they, as a company, have not forgotten about North Wilkesboro Speedway. So all of this, in my opinion, at least points to an SRX race at North Wilkesboro in 2022 after some, at the very least, basic basic renovations are done to the facility. The timing is going to be interesting because we are in September, and the 2022 SRX schedule on CBS has not been publicized yet, but I would assume they're looking at racing in June, July again next year. That's roughly 9 months away. So can the state approve that budget? Can North Wilkesboro Speedway spend that money? Can they actually get all the things renovated they need to get renovated in time to bring the SRX into the track next summer? I don't know. The track, as it sits now at least, couldn't hold an SRX race, but with a little work, I think it could by next year. Obviously, this would really be cool for race fans in that area, longtime fans of that track that hasn't seen NASCAR in a quarter century, to bring a major racing series, which I think the SRX qualifies as after last season, to bring that series or a series like that to the Speedway next year, get some of those renovations done and put in place. That would be really, really cool. And the SRX would earn a lot of goodwill from, hardcore racing fans who still haven't gotten over the fact that NASCAR left the Speedway 25 years ago. But that being said, NASCAR plays a role in this because, with all due respect to the SRX, I don't think Marcus Smith and SMI would be putting this much attention and perhaps putting this much money into North Wilkesboro Speedway for an SRX race. No, SMI wants to bring NASCAR back to that racetrack as soon as they possibly can. May not be the Cup Series initially, but within the next few years, they want the truck, they want the Xfinity Series, and eventually they want the Cup Series at North Wilkesboro. That is the goal. The goal is to bring NASCAR back to Wilkes County, North Carolina. That's the only reason SMI would be putting this much energy, effort, money, and attention towards this racetrack. But if the first step along that path is an SRX race next summer, that's pretty dang cool. That's just my theory. That's just my prediction that they're talking about SRX. Heck, the way the last year has gone, who knows? IndyCar to North Wilkesboro. Whoa! I don't think that's happening, but let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you think it makes sense for the SRX to head to North Wilkesboro next year? Do you think that's the series Brett Griffin is talking about? What do you think of NASCAR possibly returning to the Speedway in the coming years? Leave your comment down below. I look forward to reading those responses. That's all I've got for this episode. Be sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel. We talk NASCAR news, predictions, rumors, race recaps, and much, much more. And as always, a great thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters as well. Busy day of racing tomorrow. Like I said, Xfinity and Cup back-to-back deal. Junior makes his one and only start of the 2021 season. The Cup Series playoffs roll on into the night. Going to be a fantastic day. I'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your Friday, folks.